Hey guys, welcome. Zoltan here with Zoltan's Bass Lounge. Now today I'm going to take a look at our right hand playing technique and how to produce a nice big substantial sound with the bass. Okay, now as far as sound goes and sound production goes, I think there are a couple of different elements that are very important in producing a sound with the bass. Now the first thing would be is to learn how to actually get your arm weight into your notes, how to take advantage of your arm weight, all that weight that you've got in your arm, you know, to substantiate a real nice big tone for you. And look at this. One way to actually kind of start to learn that is that if you just lift your arm and don't touch the bass, and now just kind of let it go. It's very simple. Everybody can do it, right? That's it. You dropped your arm. And you kind of drop it from your shoulder. You know, so it really kind of starts from your shoulder like that. And now it's dropped. Now all we have to do is to maintain this straight line of the lower arm, of the wrist, and of your hand. So your blood flow will be uninterrupted. So your blood can flow freely and your bloodstream is right. So to give you the best playing ability physically, you know, to get started to play with your right hand. That's very important. And then what we'll do, just as we actually just kind of let our arm drop, now what we'll do, we'll have the first and the second finger assigned as our playing fingers. And we'll just use our first finger, let's say, for now. And we'll just hook it in, curl it a little bit, and hook it into one of the strings. And all I'm going to do now is I'm just going to let my arm go just like I did before the bass. Yeah, and that produces a sound. Now, if I control it a little bit, then now I'm just going to hit the next string, still drop my arm. Yeah. And that produces a sound, obviously, because as you drop your arm, your finger comes with it, and then that in return pulls the string, makes a sound. Now, you could say that maybe this is not the most substantial sound you've ever heard, but if you consider that I have not made any effort, all I've done, I just let my arm weight go, let my arm drop, and hooked my finger into the string. That's it. I mean, to me, then it's a real good result. Now, as you could see before, it might not be the most controlled way of actually making a sound, because if you just hook your finger in without any kind of further control or anything else to be done with your finger, then your hand can kind of slide through all the strings, and so you haven't got a lot of control there. But now this is the second part of our technique here, of producing a note, is the actual plucking part with your fingers. So, and like I said, we'll use the first and the second finger. So we'll just start on the first finger here, and all I'm gonna do, I'm gonna make this little plucking motion like you're walking. Look, walking, and put it on a string and just pluck. Now you could see that I've left my arm out of this, so on purpose I just did the plucking so you could have a chance to see how much of a note, how much of a sound you can make just by plucking. Which is quite alright, quite substantial. Now the problem would be if you just did that and never used your arm weight, that you lose substance, you lose volume and depth in the sound, you know, and you also actually will start to get very tired very soon, because you're basically overworking your fingers, and believe me, this very quickly, or try it at home, very quickly you'll be tired of just doing that. So now when we combine the two, and this is when the magic starts, because I'm going to put my arm weight into the note, and I'm going to put my plucking into the note as well, and I'm going to do it in the same time. So the plucking and the control of the plucking, and the hand being on the strings on the fingerboard, and your substance with your arms, the two together really creates a real great, nice, big, substantial tone. Look at this. So I plucked and dropped my arm in the same time on a different string, trying to keep everything straight here as much as possible. Like that. Now start to do this at home. Start to just start playing one note at a time and start to learn, you know, like we showed it in the video, you know, start to learn to drop your arm weight, and you will realize, and you'll notice that soon enough you'll start to get a nicer and bigger tone. You'll have a warmer tone, and you'll have that real nice big bassy substantial tone. And but also don't forget and be patient with yourself, because it's not something that you'll just play a couple of notes and it's there. You'll have to feel it with your especially with your arm. You'll have to feel that where it is, where your arm will actually fall into place, and will start to be able to naturally just fall to every note, you know, especially when you're playing slower. So that is the first two very, very important elements of your right hand technique, or your right hand playing. And we'll consider a few other things right now that will also help you along in really developing a real good, real cool, and in control and powerful right hand for the bass. Now let's take a look at which side of our fingers to use when we are plucking. Now when we comp, so we accompany people, we are playing the bass function, we are playing the function of the instrument, I most likely will use the side of my fingers right here, right there, because you will see in a minute that when you do that, you'll have more of your finger, more meat of your finger getting into contact with the string. So look at this. If I show it to you from this angle, look how much of my finger is actually there on the string this time to make that note for me. And especially when you comp, you know, when you really need a big substantial sound, the more you can hook your finger onto the string, the more you can get into contact with the string with your fingers, the better. Just like that. Still, of course, keep everything straight and drop your arm. So that's something I would start practicing, to get most of the side of your fingers, of your first and second, of your index finger and middle finger, onto that string. Now the second scenario would be, and this will come later. Right now you really don't need to worry about this. The second part would be when you start to play solos or melodies, more advanced stuff, you know, more complex stuff on the bass, and that will be when you actually start to play with your fingertips. And that's kind of similar to the electric bass, except for the angle of our hand is much different, because on the electric bass your angle would become kind of like this, and we have this kind of 45-degree angle like that from here to there on the double bass. So what I do normally, I would actually put my thumb on the side of the fingerboard just to anchor my hand down, and then I use my fingertips to alternate to play faster stuff and still be accurate. Or sometimes I even actually just put my thumb onto the E string like that. And that's something to practice as well, but practicing exercises will come in a minute, so let's not worry about that right now. Now that would bring us to the next question, actually. And the next question would be, well, okay, fine, we can comp like that, we can solo like that. Now what happens after we play the note? And what happens, and a lot of people will do the same thing here actually, is that you basically put your finger or push your finger into the next available string underneath, so that will stop your finger, so you won't have to kind of go off the bass like that, which in my case would actually happen sometimes, and it's very it's good comedy value, I'll tell you that. But anyway, so we'll just stop our fingers with the next available string, which is great until we get to the E string. Now when you get to the E string, again, I do this sometimes, and I've seen a lot of very, very good bass players do this, where you can just, you know, if you don't really have anything else to play, then you really can take your hand off the fingerboard and the string and kind of come away from the bass. But more than likely you will want to stay there to be able to play again, and as quickly as possible. So what happens, I keep my thumb on the side of the fingerboard here, and as I play that E string, I'm going to make this kind of semicircular motion with my arm, look like that, and try to keep my thumb on the side of the fingerboard, like that. Let's just see that from a different angle. And the semicircular motion, and then you can just bounce back. Now, two things happen actually when you do that. And the first thing is that you've got control. So you're maintaining your control over the instrument, because what we do here, because of this semicircular motion, our arms will just bounce back very quickly and ready to play the next note, whatever the next note will be, whatever string, doesn't matter, but you're there. That's very important. And also the second very important thing to do is, or to gain out of this, is that this semicircular motion really affords your whole arm to get into that note. See, I'm using the whole of my arm to produce this note here, and therefore I've got a real nice big substantial note, or tone, like that. Okay. So that's another thing to consider. That's a really important thing. And now that we started to talk about the thumb a little bit, let's just go back to this angle here, and let me show you this. This is something quite important to know about the thumb, actually, because it's all well and wonderful. We got our fingers figured out now, so that's cool. You know, we're all right with that. What does the thumb do? All this time. Well, what I like to do actually, and what I found throughout the years quite advantageous and quite comfortable, and kind of really good for playability, is just simply put your thumb behind a fingerboard and don't really clutch or don't really try to squeeze the fingerboard like that. So don't start to make your hand and arm rigid. The minute you do that, you will lose playability, because with a rigid arm and hand, you will not be able to play. It's very, very difficult to play like this. So I just keep it there, quite nice and relaxed, right there. And what it does, when I play the middle strings, the D and the A string, it's just kind of there in the middle. And as I come up to the higher string, to the G string, it just follows my hand around and just accommodates, basically just accommodates my fingers coming up there to the higher string to play. So it kind of moves out of underneath the fingerboard a little bit. But then when I come back, it just comes back with me, it just comes back with my hand. So it's just there, quite nice and relaxed like that, loose like that. And so this dent here, right here, if you see it, let me show it like that, between your index finger and your thumb, is basically pushed into the fingerboard like that. So like that, it's there, and I just push it in there, and it's just there solid, and it's got control, and it's really stable there like that. And so when I come down to the E string, I actually then, as I told you before, put it on here onto the side of the fingerboard, so I can make the semicircular motion and get that nice big tone, and also get that bounce back, so I can come back and ready to play again like that. Cool. Now that actually just gives us one more thing to talk about before we wrap up this first video about your right hand, and that will be muting. So muting actually happens naturally anyways when you play, and as you start to develop your playing. But just to be thorough, let's just say a couple of things about it here. And the first thing is, when you play your higher strings here, that's quite easy actually, because your hand is resting on the strings anyway, so this side of your palm is there in a very good position to just kind of act as a mute for all of the lower strings there that you might play later on, right? So it's a good position for you to have everything else muted. Now, what happens is, as you come down to your lower strings, we start to lose that facility of the side of our palms resting on the other strings. So what happens here, as you play on the lower strings, obviously your left hand will come down and play on those lower strings with the right hand. Yeah? And so what happens in this case, we'll try to keep that nice arched posture of the left hand that we have there. And so your palm here, the palm of your left hand, actually will start to act as a mute for the higher strings. Look. So I'm not really pushing my my palm onto those strings there, but they're just kind of hovering over them. And so that's enough to really mute them. And even if I wanted to play those strings, I can't really make a lot of sound out of them. So without playing them, actually they'll be quite quiet there and not ring into anything that we're playing, let's say on the E string, on the lower string here, like that. So basically when you play your higher strings, your right hand, the side of your palm, kind of acts like a mute there for the lower strings. And when you play your lower strings, then your palm of your left hand really will start to act like a mute for the higher strings up here. Okay, so now that's a lot of information to come through. Actually, first of all, to learn about your right hand technique, and what we'll do, we'll get into a few real nice little exercises here to really kind of start to develop your right hand playing abilities.